The day I sold our house for $1, my attorney looked at me across the conference table and said, "You understand what you are doing?" I told him I understood completely. He said, "You are walking away from $400,000 in equity." I told him I knew exactly what I was walking away from. He was quiet for a moment. Then he slid the papers across and handed me a pen. I signed every page without hesitating. Because what my attorney did not understand, what my wife did not understand, what nobody in my life understood at that point, was that the house was never the point. The point was that my wife believed she had won, and I needed her to keep believing that for exactly 11 more days. My name is Jason, and the most expensive lesson my wife ever learned cost her a lot more than a house. I need to take you back 3 years, because none of what happened at the end makes sense without understanding what came before it. My name is Jason Mercer. I am 43 years old. I spent 17 years building a career in commercial real estate development, which means I spent 17 years learning exactly how property works, how value is created, how deals are structured, and how money moves in ways that most people never see. I am telling you this because it matters. A lot. I met my wife Rebecca when we were both 26. She was working in marketing for a hotel group, and I was just starting out in development, putting together small deals, and learning the business from the ground up. We were both ambitious and young, and we built our life together the way you do when you are starting from nothing, carefully and with a lot of faith in each other. We got married when we were 28. We bought our first house at 30. We had a son named Caleb at 32. For the first 12 years, the marriage was real. Not perfect, but real in the way that a life built on actual effort and genuine affection is real. Rebecca was smart and driven, and I admired her the same way I had always admired her. She had moved up in her career and was running brand partnerships for a regional hospitality company, and she was good at it. We worked hard. We raised Caleb well. We took vacations and argued about money sometimes, and made up and built something together that I was proud of. The change came slowly, and I missed it the way you miss things that happen right in front of you, when you are not looking for them. Her name was Derek. He was not a stranger. He was a colleague of Rebecca's at her company, a regional director she had worked alongside for 2 years before anything happened. I learned this later. At the time, all I knew was that my wife had become someone slightly different. Less present at home, more protective of her phone, more likely to be working late on nights. When Caleb and I ate dinner without her, I told myself it was stress. I told myself she was under pressure at work. I told myself a lot of things, because the alternative was something I was not ready to look at directly. A friend of mine named Marcus, who worked in the same industry as Rebecca, told me at a dinner one evening, with a specific discomfort of someone delivering news they wish they did not have, that he had seen Rebecca and a man at a restaurant 2 weeks earlier. The way he described it left no room for a comfortable interpretation. I did not confront her that night, or the next night. I sat with what Marcus had told me, and I made a decision that I want you to understand was not made out of coldness. It was made out of clarity. I had spent 17 years in commercial real estate. I knew better than almost anyone that the moment you reveal your position in a negotiation, you lose the leverage you have not yet used. What I knew about my wife, about our finances, about our marriage, was leverage, and I was going to use it carefully. I hired a private investigator. His name was Frank, and he was professional and thorough. And within 3 weeks, he had given me a document that confirmed everything Marcus had implied and added details I had not known. The relationship had been going on for 14 months. Derek was also married. His wife, a woman named Sandra, did not know. Frank gave me photographs, dates, locations, and a timeline that was more precise than anything I could have assembled myself. I read the document once, put it in a folder, and put the folder in my office at work. Then I started planning. The house was the first thing I thought about. We had bought it 9 years earlier for $260,000. The neighborhood had transformed significantly since then. A development I had actually consulted on had brought new commercial infrastructure to the area, and residential values had responded accordingly. Our house, which was a 4-bedroom colonial, with a finished basement and a renovated kitchen, that Rebecca had overseen with genuine taste, was worth somewhere between $410,000 and $430,000, depending on the market conditions at the time of sale. We had a mortgage balance of approximately $40,000 remaining. The equity was real, and it was substantial. In a standard divorce proceeding, that equity would have been divided. Rebecca's attorney would have argued for 50%. My attorney would have negotiated. We would have ended up somewhere in the middle. That is how it works when both parties are playing the standard game. I was not playing the standard game. What I knew about real estate, specifically about the way value can be structured and transferred, in ways that are entirely legal, but not immediately visible to someone who does not know what they are looking at, gave me options that most people going through a divorce do not have. I spent 6 weeks working quietly with a colleague of mine named Tom, who was a real estate attorney, with a specialty in complex property transactions, to structure something that was going to look, on the surface, like the worst financial decision I had ever made. The structure was straightforward if you understood it. I sold the house to a limited liability company that I had established under a name that had no connection to me. The sale price was $1, which is a legitimate mechanism in property transactions, used for various purposes, and which is entirely legal when properly documented. The LLC then entered into a lease agreement with a third party. The equity, which was real and which was going nowhere, was protected within a structure that Rebecca's attorneys would spend a significant amount of time trying to untangle, during which time the divorce proceedings would be governed by what appeared to be the case, rather than what actually was the case. I also, in the weeks before I filed, moved my retirement accounts in ways that were legal, and that my attorney advised me on carefully. Everything I did was reviewed by 2 attorneys and 1 accountant, and none of it crossed any legal line. The timing mattered. I filed for divorce on a Monday morning. Rebecca was served at her office. I know this because I had thought about where and when she would be served, and had chosen deliberately. I wanted her to receive the papers in a professional environment, where her immediate reaction would be constrained by the presence of colleagues. I wanted her first phone call to Derek to be made, from a bathroom or a parking garage, quietly, with the awareness that people were nearby. I was told later, by a mutual acquaintance, that Rebecca had left the office early that day. Her attorney contacted my attorney within 48 hours. The opening conversation, which my attorney relayed to me, was largely focused on the house. Rebecca's attorney wanted to establish the current market value and to begin the process of arguing for her share of the equity. My attorney was cooperative and pleasant, and provided them with a deed to the property which showed that the house had been sold to an LLC for $1 4 weeks earlier. My attorney told me that Rebecca's attorney went quiet for a very long time on the phone. I want to be honest with you about something. The moment I had been planning toward, the moment when Rebecca understood what had happened, was not as satisfying as I had imagined it would be in the months when I was building toward it. Because what my attorney did not understand, what my wife did not understand, what nobody in my life understood at that point, was that the house was never the point. The point was that my wife believed she had won, and I needed her to keep believing that for exactly 11 more days. What did happen over the course of the following months was something more complicated and ultimately more significant. Rebecca's attorney spent considerable resources trying to attack the property transaction. They argued improper transfer. They argued fraudulent conveyance. My attorneys had anticipated every angle and the documentation was airtight. The court found no basis for overturning the transaction. The divorce settlement reflected the reality of what appeared to be the marital assets at the time of filing. Rebecca's attorneys negotiated hard on everything they could see. They could not negotiate effectively on the house, because the house, as far as the legal record was concerned, had been sold for $1 before the divorce was filed. Derek's wife Sandra found out during the proceedings. I did not tell her. I genuinely do not know how she found out, and I want to be clear that I did not direct Frank or anyone else to inform her. She found out the way these things find out, which is that when two people are behaving recklessly, the evidence accumulates, and eventually someone sees it who was not supposed to. Derek and Sandra's divorce was filed 3 months after mine. Rebecca and Derek did not stay together after both their marriages ended. This surprised me initially and then did not surprise me at all, because the relationship they had was built on a specific kind of fantasy that does not survive contact with the ordinary difficulty of actual life. My son Caleb was 14 when the divorce was finalized. He is 17 now. I want to tell you about him, because he is the part of this story that I think about more than any other part. Caleb is a serious and perceptive kid who handled something that no 14-year-old should have to handle with more grace than I had any right to expect. He asked me once, about 8 months after everything was over, whether I regretted any of it. I told him I regretted the things that made the rest of it necessary. He thought about that for a moment, and then nodded and said that was a fair answer. He lives with me. Rebecca has him on weekends and every other holiday. We are both present at his school events and his games. We manage it the way adults are supposed to manage it, which is with a consistent, low-grade effort that putting a child's needs above your own requires. I am not going to claim that it is easy. I am going to tell you that it is what he deserves. The LLC holds the property. It has appreciated since the transfer. I am not going to tell you the current value because it is not the point. The point is that it exists and it is mine. And it was protected because I knew something that Rebecca and her attorneys did not know I knew, which is that in any situation where power is going to shift, the person who understands the structure of things before the conflict begins is the person who determines how the conflict ends. I want to tell you one more thing. In the months of planning, in the weeks of meetings with attorneys and accountants, in the careful and deliberate work of building something that would hold up to scrutiny, I had a lot of time to think about the marriage. Not just the end of it. All of it. The 17 years. The things that were real and the things that were not. And the places where I could have paid different attention. And the places where it would not have mattered regardless. What I came to understand was that my wife had not stopped respecting me the day she started seeing Derek. She had stopped before that. Somewhere in the years that preceded it, in the gradual and unannounced way that respect erodes, when it is not actively maintained, she had made a decision about who I was and what I was capable of. She had decided I was someone who could be managed, someone who would not see what was in front of him, someone who, when the time came, would accept whatever he was given and be grateful for the car. She was wrong about that. And the most important thing I have rebuilt in the 3 years since is not my finances. It is my very clear understanding of my own value, what I know, what I am capable of, and what I will and will not accept from someone who shares my life. If you are watching this and someone in your life has decided you are less than you are, has quietly concluded that you can be managed and misled, and handed whatever they decide to give you, I want you to hear this. Let them keep that conclusion. Do not correct it. Use the time they give you while they are not paying attention to build something they cannot see coming. The house was never the point. The point was that she thought she knew me, and the most valuable thing I ever did was let her keep thinking that until I was ready. My name is Jason. She thought she had the house. I had everything else. Tell me in the comments whether you have ever let someone underestimate you and used it to your advantage. I want to hear your story. Subscribe for more. I will see you in the next one.